The morning light peeked through the thin curtains of the budget motel room, as Gloria Henderson smoothed down her marine dress blues one final time. Her hands, strong from years of service, brushed over the modest row of medals that told the story of her 15 years in the Corps. Today wasn't about those medals, though. Today was about her son. Gloria took a deep breath and looked in the mirror. At 45, her face showed the marks of someone who'd seen both hardship and joy. The corners of her eyes crinkled as she practiced her smile, trying to make sure she wouldn't cry when the big moment came. She had driven through the night, crossing 3 state lines to be here on time. Nothing would make her miss this day. Almost there, Robbie, she whispered to herself, thinking of her son who would soon walk across the stage as a Naval Academy graduate. The boy who used to wear her oversized Marine cap around the house was now becoming a Navy officer himself. The drive to Annapolis felt both too long and too short. Gloria's mind wandered through memories as she followed the GPS directions. She remembered the day she'd enlisted, young and full of fire, wanting to prove herself and serve her country. She thought of the nights spent video calling Robbie during deployments, his small face lighting up the screen from thousands of miles away. The school plays she'd missed, the baseball games she'd watched through choppy internet connections. Raising him alone hadn't been easy. His father had walked out when Robbie was just 3, unable to handle the military lifestyle. But they had made it work, just the 2 of them against the world. And now here she was, driving to watch her son follow in her footsteps. Though he'd chosen a different branch, something that had made her pretend to be offended even as pride swelled in her. "Yes, the Navy needs good men too," she'd told him with a wink when he'd announced his decision. Gloria pulled into the visitor parking lot and checked her appearance one last time in the rearview mirror. Her uniform was spotless, medals aligned perfectly, hat positioned just right. She had ironed everything twice this morning, wanting to look her absolute best for Robbie's big day. As she walked toward the ceremony venue, she couldn't help but notice the curious glances from other families. Most were dressed in Sunday best, floral dresses, pressed suits, and pastel colors. Her crisp blue uniform stood out, but she walked with the quiet confidence that came from years of standing tall under much more intimidating gazes than these. An older man in a Navy veteran's cap nodded at her as she passed. "Semper Fi," he said with respect in his eyes. "Semper Fi," she replied with a small smile. The familiar greeting warmed her heart, a reminder that she was part of something bigger than herself. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from Robbie. "Can't wait to see you, Mom. Saved you a great seat near the front. Love you." Gloria felt her throat tighten. How had that little boy who once collected toy soldiers grown into a man about to swear an oath to defend his country? The same oath she had taken all those years ago, standing tall and terrified and certain all at once. She remembered the day Robbie had told her he was applying to the Naval Academy. They'd been sitting at their small kitchen table eating spaghetti, a rare evening when she wasn't working her second job. "So I filled out the application," he'd said casually, as if he wasn't talking about one of the most competitive programs in the country. "The Naval Academy? Not Marines?" she'd asked, twirling pasta around her fork. "Gotta break tradition somewhere, Mom," he'd replied with that crooked grin of his. "Besides, someone in this family needs to learn how to sail." She had helped him every step of the way after that, driving him to get his congressional recommendation, quizzing him on the entrance exams, listening to his struggles during plebe year when he called home ready to quit. "Hendersons don't quit," she'd reminded him. "We just find another way forward." Now, approaching the grand ceremony hall with its imposing columns and pristine walkways, Gloria felt a surge of emotion. They had made it. Despite all the odds stacked against a single mom in the military and her lonely little boy, they had made it to this day. Families streamed through the main entrance, excited chatter filling the air. Gloria joined the flow, her posture naturally straight from years of military bearing. The pride she felt threatened to burst from her chest as she neared the entrance to the hall, where her son would soon become an officer. She spotted the parents of Robbie's roommate, whom she'd met during Parents' Weekend. They waved her over enthusiastically. "Gloria, don't you look magnificent," the mother said, giving her a quick hug. "Robbie told us you'd be wearing your uniform. He's so proud of you, you know." "Thank you," Gloria replied, unable to keep from smiling. "It's a family tradition. My father wore his uniform to my graduation and I'm carrying it on." "Well, we saved seats together if you'd like to join us." Robbie pointed them out earlier. Gloria thanked them and continued toward the security checkpoint. Two guards stood checking invitations and IDs before allowing people to enter. She reached into her small purse for her invitation, ready to go through without any fuss. The first guard, a younger man with a friendly face, smiled as she approached. He checked her invitation and ID, nodding respectfully at her uniform before handing everything back. It was the second guard who stopped her. He was older, with a stern expression that didn't waver as he looked her up and down. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said, his voice professional but firm. "Are you part of today's ceremony?" Gloria shook her head. "No, I'm here as a guest. My son is one of the graduates." The guard frowned slightly. "I'm sorry, but the protocol for today's ceremony specifies civilian attire for all guests. Military uniforms are only permitted for those directly participating in the ceremony." Gloria blinked in surprise. In all her years attending military functions, she had never been told she couldn't wear her uniform. There must be some mistake. Military protocol allows service members to wear their dress uniforms to formal military events. I've attended dozens of graduations like this. "Perhaps at Marine graduations," the guard replied, unmoved. "But today's instructions are specific. Guests are to be in civilian attire only." A small knot formed in Gloria's stomach. She hadn't brought any other clothes with her. It had never occurred to her that wearing her dress blues would be an issue. This was a military academy graduation, after all. "Sir, with all due respect, I've traveled across 3 states to be here. This uniform represents 15 years of service to the country, and my son is expecting to see me in it. It's important to both of us." By now, people were starting to notice the holdup. A few guests glanced over curiously as they passed through the other security line. Gloria felt her cheeks warm with embarrassment, but she kept her voice steady and respectful. The first guard leaned over to whisper something to his colleague. The older guard shook his head firmly. "I understand your situation, ma'am, but I have my orders. You can either change into civilian clothes or wait outside until after the ceremony when your son can meet you." Gloria's heart sank. Missing the ceremony wasn't an option. Robbie had worked too hard for this moment, and she had promised to be there, watching proudly as he received his commission. "Is there someone I could speak with about this?" she asked, trying to keep the desperation from her voice. "The event coordinator, perhaps?" "The instructions come directly from the planning committee," the older guard said, his tone softening slightly. "For what it's worth, I serve too. Army. I understand what the uniform means to you, but I have to follow today's protocol." A line was forming behind Gloria now. She could hear whispers and shuffling feet. The last thing she wanted was to cause a scene on Robbie's big day. She had always taught him about respecting authority, even when it felt unfair. "I understand," she said finally, her voice quiet but dignified. "Could I at least leave a message for Midshipman Henderson? To let him know why I'm not in my seat?" The younger guard started to respond but stopped as some commotion began near the entrance. Gloria turned, hoping it wasn't Robbie coming to look for her. How would she explain that she couldn't attend his graduation because of her uniform, the very symbol of the service that had shaped both their lives? She stepped away from the checkpoint, considering her limited options. The ceremony would start in less than an hour. Not enough time to find a store. Not enough time to drive back to the motel for her travel clothes. Not enough time to fix this unexpected problem that threatened to ruin one of the most important days of her life. As Gloria Henderson stood there in her perfectly pressed marine dress blues, medals catching the morning light, she faced an impossible choice. She could push the issue and potentially create a disruption that might overshadow her son's achievement. Or she could miss witnessing the culmination of their years of sacrifice and hard work. Either way, for the first time in a long time, the tough Marine who had faced down combat situations without flinching felt truly helpless. All she had wanted was to honor her son by wearing the uniform that represented everything she had taught him about courage, honor, and commitment. Now that same uniform was keeping her from being there for his most important moment. Gloria stood at the security checkpoint, her mind racing through possible solutions. The ceremony would begin in 45 minutes, and her son Robbie was expecting to see his mother in the seat he'd saved, wearing the uniform that represented their family's legacy of service. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to step aside for other guests," the older guard said, gesturing to the growing line behind her. Gloria nodded and moved away from the checkpoint, her throat tight with emotion. She had never felt so out of place in her uniform before. Throughout her 15 years of service, it had been her second skin, a symbol of belonging. Now it was the very thing keeping her from her son's graduation. She walked a few paces away and stood near a large column, trying to decide what to do next. The obvious solution was to leave and change clothes, but her only other outfit was casual travel wear, jeans and a t-shirt, hardly appropriate for such a formal occasion. Besides, the motel was 30 minutes away. By the time she returned, the ceremony would be well underway. As she considered her options, she noticed a small group of people watching her from near the entrance. They were speaking in hushed tones, occasionally glancing in her direction. Gloria straightened her back instinctively, the way she always did when feeling scrutinized. She wouldn't show how upset she really was. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from Robbie. "Mom, where are you? Ceremony starts soon." Gloria's fingers hovered over the screen. What could she possibly say? That she couldn't attend because she was wearing the wrong clothes? That the uniform he had grown up seeing her wear with pride was now keeping her from the most important day of his life? Before she could respond, an older woman approached her. She was elegantly dressed in a navy blue pantsuit, with a small pin on her lapel that Gloria recognized as a military spouse emblem. "Excuse me," the woman said gently. "I couldn't help but overhear. You're being turned away because of your uniform?" Gloria nodded, embarrassed but grateful for the kindness in the stranger's eyes. "Yes, ma'am. Apparently today's protocol requires civilian attire for guests." "That's ridiculous," the woman said, shaking her head. "My husband wore his army dress uniform to our daughter's graduation here 3 years ago." No one said a word. "Things change, I suppose," Gloria replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "I just wish I'd known beforehand." The woman introduced herself as Patricia, the mother of one of the other graduates. "Let me see what I can do," she said with determination. "My husband is a retired colonel. He's inside already, but he might be able to help." While Patricia made a phone call, Gloria continued to wrestle with her options. She could wait outside and hope to catch glimpses of the ceremony through the doors. She could try to find someone higher up in the chain of command who might override the guards. Or she could simply leave and wait for Robbie to call her after it was all over. None of those options seemed right. This was supposed to be their moment, the day when everything they'd worked for finally paid off. The day when her son would stand tall in his new uniform while she watched with tears of pride in her eyes. Patricia returned, her expression apologetic. "I'm so sorry. My husband spoke with one of the organizers, and apparently it's a new rule this year. Something about keeping the focus on the graduates and maintaining a uniform appearance for the guests. It's ridiculous if you ask me." "Thank you for trying," Gloria said, forcing a smile. She glanced at her watch. 35 minutes until the ceremony began. Just then, her phone rang. It was Robbie. Gloria hesitated before answering, not wanting him to hear the distress in her voice. "Hey, sweetheart," she said, striving for a normal tone. "Mom, where are you? Everyone's taking their seats already." Gloria took a deep breath. "I'm outside the hall, but there's a small problem. They won't let me in wearing my uniform." There was silence on the other end of the line. Then Robbie's voice came back, tight with disbelief. "What? That's crazy. Hold on, I'm coming out there." No, Gloria said quickly. "You can't leave now. The ceremony is about to start. I'll figure something out." "But Mom..." "Robert Henderson," she said using her Marine mom voice. "You stay right where you are. This is your day and nothing is going to mess that up. I'll find a way in, I promise." After hanging up, Gloria felt a renewed determination. She had faced worse obstacles than this. She had completed boot camp while some men had quit. She had raised a son on her own while deploying to combat zones. She had survived a bullet wound to her shoulder during her second tour. She wouldn't be defeated by some arbitrary dress code. She approached the checkpoint again, this time heading for a different guard who had just started his shift. Maybe a fresh face would have a different perspective. The new guard, a middle-aged man with kind eyes, listened patiently as Gloria explained her situation. But his answer was the same. "I'm truly sorry, ma'am. I understand the significance of your uniform and what this day means to you and your son. But the instructions are clear. Military uniforms are only for participants in the ceremony." Gloria felt her last hope slipping away. "Could you at least tell me who's in charge of this policy? Who could make an exception?" The guard hesitated, then lowered his voice. "The ceremony coordinator is Commander Wilson. He's inside already, preparing for the event to start." I can try to get a message to him, but I can't guarantee anything. Please, Gloria said, not caring anymore about maintaining her tough Marine exterior. Please just tell him that Sergeant Henderson, USMC retired, is requesting permission to attend her son's graduation in uniform. Tell him it's a family tradition going back generations. The guard nodded and spoke quietly into his radio. Gloria waited, her heart pounding. 25 minutes until the ceremony began. More guests streamed past her, giving curious glances at the Marine standing alone by the checkpoint. Patricia had returned to her family, but not before giving Gloria a supportive squeeze on the arm and wishing her luck. The minutes ticked by. 20 minutes. 15 minutes. The crowd of arriving guests had thinned to a trickle. Soon everyone would be seated, waiting for the graduates to march in, and Gloria would still be standing outside, unable to witness her son's proudest moment. The guard returned, his expression regretful. I'm sorry, ma'am. Commander Wilson says the policy is firm. No exceptions. Gloria's shoulders slumped slightly, but she kept her head high. Thank you for trying, she said quietly. She stepped away from the checkpoint for the third time, fighting back tears that threatened to fall. She would not cry. Not here, not now. Marines didn't cry in public, no matter how broken their hearts might be. As she stood there trying to decide what to do next, she overheard snippets of conversation from a nearby group of guests. Can you believe they're not letting her in? It's disgraceful. She served our country. Someone should do something. The whispers made Gloria even more uncomfortable. The last thing she wanted was to become a spectacle, or to draw attention away from the graduates. This day was about Robbie and his accomplishments, not about his mother and a dress code dispute. Just as Gloria was about to walk away and find a quiet place to compose herself, she noticed a commotion at the main entrance. A group of men in crisp white Navy uniforms were speaking animatedly with one of the security personnel. They seemed to be asking questions and gesturing in her direction. Gloria's heart sank. Had Robbie ignored her instructions and sent someone to find her? Was he disrupting his own graduation because of her? One of the men in white, an older officer with commander's insignia, broke away from the group and strode purposefully toward her. His face was serious, his posture ramrod straight. Gloria recognized the bearing of someone used to authority. She prepared herself for another disappointment, maybe even a more formal request for her to leave the premises entirely. The commander stopped a few feet away from her, his eyes taking in her marine dress blues, the modest row of medals, the perfect creases and polished buttons. Then, to her complete surprise, he snapped to attention and rendered a perfect salute. Sergeant Henderson? He asked, holding the salute. Stunned, Gloria automatically returned the salute, muscle memory taking over. Yes, sir. Commander Jack Wilson, ma'am. I understand there's been an issue with your attendance today. Gloria's mind spun. This was the ceremony coordinator himself, the very person who had just denied her request for an exception. Yes, 15 years, sir. 2 combat tours. He nodded slowly, his eyes lingering on her medals. And your son is graduating today? Yes, sir. Midshipman Robert Henderson. He'll be commissar, she replied, her voice professional despite her inner turmoil. I was informed that my uniform violates today's dress code for guests. The commander's expression was unreadable. May I ask how long you served, Sergeant? I owned as an ensign. Something shifted in Commander Wilson's expression. A softening around the eyes, perhaps, or a slight quirk of the mouth. Sergeant Henderson, I owe you an apology. There appears to have been a misunderstanding about today's protocol. Gloria waited, hardly daring to hope. Military dress uniforms have always been acceptable attire for family members at Naval Academy graduations, the commander continued. That hasn't changed. Whoever told you otherwise was mistaken. He gestured toward the entrance where the group of officers in white uniforms was still waiting. Now, if you'd allow us, my colleagues and I would be honored to escort you to your seat. The ceremony begins in 10 minutes, and I believe your son is expecting you. Gloria could hardly believe what she was hearing. After all the back and forth, all the disappointment, was she actually going to make it to Robbie's graduation? Thank you, sir, she managed, her voice thick with emotion. That would mean everything. Gloria followed Commander Wilson back toward the entrance, still not quite believing the sudden turn of events. After nearly being denied access to her son's graduation, she was now being personally escorted by the ceremony coordinator himself. As they approached the group of officers waiting at the entrance, Gloria noticed something she had missed before. These weren't just any Navy officers. The tridents on their uniforms marked them as Navy SEALs, the elite special operations force known for undertaking the military's most dangerous missions. Sergeant Henderson, Commander Wilson said, "I'd like you to meet some colleagues of mine. We all serve as training officers for the graduating class." The men stood at attention as Gloria approached. There were 11 of them besides Commander Wilson, 12 SEALs in total. Each wore the distinctive dress whites of the Navy with immaculate precision, their posture perfect and eyes respectful. "Gentlemen, this is Sergeant Henderson, Marine Corps, retired," Commander Wilson said. "She's the mother of one of our finest midshipmen graduating today." The oldest of the group, a broad-shouldered man with silver at his temples, stepped forward. "Chief Petty Officer Pete Donovan, ma'am. It's an honor to meet you." Gloria shook his hand, struck by the genuine respect in his eyes. "The honor is mine, Chief," another officer spoke up. "Your son Robert is one of our standouts, Sergeant. He's mentioned you often during training, said everything he knows about discipline and perseverance he learned from his Marine mom." Warmth spread through Gloria's chest at these words. Robbie had talked about her to his instructors, had shared the lessons she'd tried so hard to teach him. "Thank you for telling me that," she said, her voice slightly rough with emotion. "He's worked so hard to get here." Commander Wilson checked his watch. "We should get inside. The ceremony will begin shortly." He turned to the guards who had been watching the exchange with wide eyes. "Gentlemen, this Marine will be joining us today. Please ensure she receives every courtesy." The younger guard nodded quickly while the older one, the same man who had turned Gloria away earlier, looked thoroughly embarrassed. "Yes, sir. Of course, sir." Gloria couldn't help feeling a small sense of satisfaction as she walked past the guards, now flanked by 12 of the Navy's most elite operators. She didn't understand exactly why these men had come to her aid, but she was deeply grateful. As they entered the ceremony hall, Gloria gasped softly. The space was magnificent, rows of seats facing a grand stage draped with flags and naval insignia. Most of the seats were already filled with families in their Sunday best, all buzzing with excitement about the upcoming ceremony. "Your son reserved a seat for you near the front," Commander Wilson said. "We'll escort you there." Gloria felt the weight of hundreds of eyes as she walked down the center aisle. The SEALs formed a loose formation around her, 6 on each side, creating an honor guard of sorts. Whispers followed their progress. "Who is she? That's a Marine uniform. Why are the SEALs escorting her?" Under normal circumstances, Gloria would have been uncomfortable with so much attention. But today, walking tall in her dress blues with these men showing such unexpected respect, she felt only pride. Pride in her service, pride in her son, pride in the military family that spanned across branches. They reached the front row, where a single empty seat waited with a small reserved card on it. Gloria recognized Robbie's handwriting immediately and her heart swelled. "This is your seat, Sergeant," Commander Wilson said. "The graduates will be entering in about 5 minutes." Gloria turned to face the 12 SEALs. "I don't know how to thank you all," she said quietly, "but I want you to know what this means to me." Chief Donovan spoke for the group. "No thanks needed, ma'am. The way we see it, anyone who wore those blues and earned those medals deserves to see their kid graduate. Navy Marines, we're all family in the end." Another of the SEALs added, "Besides, your son is about to become one of us. That makes you family twice over." Gloria was about to respond when a distinguished-looking man in an admiral's uniform approached their group. The SEALs immediately stood at attention and Gloria followed suit instinctively. "At ease," the admiral said. He looked at Gloria with curious eyes. "I couldn't help noticing the commotion." "Commander Wilson, care to explain?" "Admiral Davis, sir, this is Sergeant Henderson, USMC retired. She's the mother of Midshipman Robert Henderson. There was a misunderstanding at security about her uniform, which we've resolved." The admiral's eyes moved to Gloria's medals, lingering on the Purple Heart. "Sergeant, welcome to the Naval Academy. We're honored by your presence and your service." "Thank you, sir," Gloria replied. "I understand your son is heading for SEAL training after commissioning." The admiral continued. "Based on his performance here, I'd say he has an excellent chance of succeeding. Must run in the family." Gloria felt a flush of pride. "He's always been determined, sir." The admiral nodded thoughtfully. "Commander Wilson, I believe we should recognize Sergeant Henderson during the ceremony." A note to the announcer, perhaps? Already arranged, sir, Wilson replied. And with your permission, my team and I would like to remain as her escort throughout the event. Approved, the Admiral said without hesitation. Then, turning back to Gloria. Enjoy your son's graduation, Sergeant. You've both earned this day. With that, he moved away to take his position for the ceremony. The SEALs settled into nearby seats while Commander Wilson remained standing next to Gloria. Sir, Gloria said hesitantly, I'm grateful beyond words, but I still don't understand. Why did you and your men go to such lengths for me? You don't even know me. Wilson's face grew serious. 2 reasons, Sergeant. First, your son Robert has been training under me for the past year. He's exceptional, the kind of officer who inspires others to be better. During a particularly grueling exercise when half the class was ready to quit, he kept them going by telling them about his mother, a Marine who'd been shot in combat and still finished her mission. Gloria blinked in surprise. She rarely spoke about her injury, and Robbie had only heard the full story once on his 16th birthday when he'd asked about her Purple Heart. The second reason, Wilson continued, is more personal. 23 years ago in Fallujah, my unit was pinned down under heavy fire. A Marine squad came to our aid, led by a tough-as-nails female sergeant who refused to leave anyone behind. I never got her name in the chaos that followed, but I never forgot her face. He paused meaningfully, or the small scar above her right eyebrow. Gloria's hand instinctively went to the thin white line above her eye, a souvenir from that very mission. That was you? The Navy lieutenant with the broken leg? Wilson nodded. Life has a way of coming full circle, doesn't it? When I saw your name on the security report and then recognized you standing outside, well, let's just say I believe in repaying debts. Before Gloria could respond, the ceremonial music began. The giant doors at the back of the hall swung open, and the midshipmen began their procession, moving in perfect unison, their white uniforms gleaming under the lights. Gloria scanned the lines of faces, searching for her son. And then she saw him. 3rd row, walking tall and proud, his eyes already searching the crowd for her. The moment he spotted her in the front row, in her marine dress blues with the SEALs surrounding her, his professional composure cracked just enough to reveal a brilliant smile. In that moment, every sacrifice, every lonely night, every difficult decision of the past 22 years felt completely worth it. This was why she had pushed through the pain of recovery after being wounded. This was why she had worked double shifts when money was tight. This was why she had stayed strong when it would have been easier to break. Her son was becoming a man she could be proud of, a leader who understood duty and honor because he had watched his mother live those values every day. As the graduates took their positions on stage, an unexpected announcement came over the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored today by the presence of Sergeant Gloria Henderson, United States Marine Corps, retired Purple Heart recipient and mother of Midshipman Robert Henderson. Sergeant Henderson's distinguished service to our nation reminds us of the legacy these graduates are about to continue. A spontaneous round of applause broke out across the hall. Gloria felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment and pride as hundreds of people turned to look at her. The 12 SEALs stood as one, facing Gloria with solemn respect. Then, in perfect unison, they saluted her, a gesture rarely given to an enlisted service member by officers, and never so publicly. Commander Wilson leaned close to whisper, "Sometimes, Sergeant, even the toughest Marines deserve to be recognized. Consider it a small token of appreciation from one branch of the military family to another." As the applause continued, Gloria returned their salute with military precision, her eyes bright with unshed tears. She had arrived today expecting only to watch her son graduate. Instead, she had found herself embraced by a brotherhood that crossed military branches, a reminder that those who serve are connected by something deeper than uniforms or rank. The ceremony was about to begin, and Gloria settled into her seat, heart full. Whatever came next in Robbie's journey, she knew now that he wouldn't be alone. He would have not just her support, but the strength of an entire military family behind him. The graduation ceremony proceeded with all the pomp and tradition that had defined the Naval Academy for generations. Gloria sat tall in her front row seat, drinking in every moment, determined to remember each detail to share with Robbie in the years to come. Commander Wilson had taken a seat beside her, occasionally leaning over to explain various aspects of the ceremony. The other SEALs remained close by, their presence creating a protective bubble around her that had transformed her from an outsider to an honored guest. The midshipmen will receive their diplomas first, Wilson explained quietly. Then they'll take the oath of office and receive their commissions. That's when they officially become ensigns in the Navy. Gloria nodded, her eyes never leaving the stage where the graduates sat in perfect rows, their white uniforms a stark contrast against the blue backdrop. She could see Robbie clearly from her seat, his posture impeccable, his expression solemn but with an undercurrent of excitement. She recognized from his childhood the same look he'd had before opening Christmas presents or heading off to his first day of school. The ceremony director had begun calling names, each graduate walking across the stage to receive their diploma with a handshake from the admiral. Gloria counted silently, knowing Robbie would be somewhere in the middle based on alphabetical order. Henderson, Robert James, the announcer finally called. Gloria's heart swelled as her son rose from his seat and strode confidently to center stage. As he accepted his diploma and shook the admiral's hand, their eyes met briefly across the crowded room. In that fleeting moment, a lifetime of shared struggles and triumphs passed between them. Late-night homework sessions at the kitchen table, tearful goodbyes before deployments, determined training for his academy entrance exams, and countless small sacrifices that had led them both to this day. "Your boy looks sharp," Chief Donovan whispered from her other side. "Carries himself like an officer already." "Thank you," Gloria replied, not trusting herself to say more without her voice breaking. As Robbie returned to his seat, Gloria noticed something that caught her by surprise. Several of his fellow graduates patted his shoulder or nodded in his direction. It reminded her of how his little league teammates used to look up to him. Robbie had always been a natural leader, the kind of kid others gravitated toward. "He's well respected," Commander Wilson observed, following her gaze. "His classmates voted him most likely to earn a trident. That's our SEAL insignia. Not an official honor, but meaningful coming from peers." The diploma ceremony continued, each name and face representing years of hard work and dedication. Gloria found herself feeling proud not just of Robbie but of all these young men and women preparing to serve their country. When the last diploma had been presented, the Admiral returned to the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen, we now come to the most significant moment of today's ceremony, the commissioning of these midshipmen as officers in the United States Navy. Would the graduates please rise and raise your right hands?" As one, the graduating class stood and raised their hands. The hall fell completely silent. "Repeat after me," the Admiral said. "I state your name." A chorus of voices filled the hall as the graduates began reciting the oath of office. Gloria knew the words by heart. She had taken a similar oath years ago as a young Marine, that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Gloria mouthed the words silently along with them, remembering the weight of responsibility she had felt the first time she had spoken them. Now her son was taking on that same sacred duty, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office upon which I am about to enter. So help me God. The Admiral smiled broadly. "Congratulations, ensigns. Welcome to the United States Navy." The hall erupted in applause and cheers. Families stood, clapping enthusiastically as the newly commissioned officers beamed with pride. Gloria found herself on her feet with everyone else, clapping until her hands hurt, tears finally spilling freely down her cheeks. Commander Wilson handed her a handkerchief without comment. The simple kindness nearly undid her completely. "Thank you," she managed, quickly wiping her eyes. "I promised myself I wouldn't cry. If it helps. Sergeant, I've attended dozens of these ceremonies, and I've yet to see a parent who keeps that promise," Wilson replied with a gentle smile. The ceremony concluded with the graduates turning to face the audience. On command, they removed their midshipman caps and replaced them with the new officer caps that had been presented to them. Then, in perfect unison, they tossed their old caps high into the air, a tradition symbolizing the end of their time as students and the beginning of their careers as officers. As caps rained down around the hall, the band struck up "Anchors Aweigh." Gloria watched as Robbie's face split into an enormous grin, the little boy inside the man finally allowed to show his excitement. The formal part of the day complete, graduates began streaming off the stage to find their families. The hall quickly filled with the happy chaos of reunions, hugs, and photographs. Gloria remained where she was, giving Robbie time to navigate through the crowd. She knew he would find her. He always did. Commander Wilson stood. "We should give you some space for your reunion," he said. "But if you and Ensign Henderson would join us afterward, we'd be honored to have you both at the reception. There's someone else there who'd like to meet you." "Of course," Gloria replied, curious but too caught up in the moment to ask questions. "And, Commander, I don't know how to thank you and your men." Wilson shook his head. "No thanks needed, Sergeant. This is what we do. We take care of our own. Your son is about to become part of our brotherhood, which makes you family." He rejoined the other SEALs who had formed a loose perimeter nearby. They began moving toward the side of the hall, giving Gloria space while somehow still maintaining a protective presence. And then suddenly, there he was. Robbie, her son. No, Ensign Robert Henderson now, moving through the crowd with purpose, his eyes locked on hers. Gloria stood as he approached, not sure of the proper protocol. Should she salute him first? Should she wait for him to salute her? They'd never discussed this moment. Robbie solved the dilemma by stopping 3 feet away and rendering a perfect formal salute. "Sergeant Henderson," he said, his voice deeper and more confident than she remembered. "Request permission to hug my mother." Gloria returned the salute with equal formality, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Permission granted, Ensign Henderson." The moment the words left her mouth, Robbie closed the distance between them and wrapped her in a bear hug that lifted her feet off the ground. "You made it," he whispered. "I knew you would." Gloria hugged him back fiercely, no longer caring about the tears streaming down her face or the curious onlookers nearby. "I'm so proud of you, Robbie. So incredibly proud." When he finally set her down, they were both laughing and crying at the same time. Robbie stepped back and looked at her uniform with a wide smile. "You look amazing, Mom, just like I always remember you. You don't look so bad yourself." "Ensign," she replied, straightening his collar with the automatic gesture of a mother who had been fixing her son's clothes for 22 years. Robbie glanced over at the SEALs, who were watching from a respectful distance. "So, I heard there was some trouble at security. And then suddenly you had 12 SEAL officers as your personal escort? Care to explain that?" Gloria laughed. "It's a long story. Apparently your Commander Wilson and I have history, though neither of us knew it until today. And it seems someone has been telling tales about his Marine mom during training exercises." Robbie had the good grace to look slightly embarrassed. "You were always my best example of not giving up, Mom. Still are." A photographer approached them asking if they wanted a picture together. Gloria nodded and Robbie stood tall beside her. Both of them in their respective uniforms, a Marine sergeant and a Navy ensign, mother and son, their shared journey visible in their matching proud smiles. After several photos, Robbie looked at her questioningly. "Commander Wilson invited us to the reception. Should we go?" "We should," Gloria agreed. "Apparently there's someone there he wants us to meet." As they made their way through the crowd, many people stopped to congratulate Robbie. Several of his classmates introduced themselves to Gloria, each mentioning something specific they'd heard about her from her son, her Purple Heart, her deployment stories, even her famous homemade cookies that Robbie's roommate had been lucky enough to taste when she'd visited during Parents' Weekend. It struck Gloria then just how much of her had been present in Robbie's academy experience, even when she'd been physically absent. He had carried her with him just as she had carried thoughts of him during her deployments. The reception was being held in an elegant hall adjacent to the ceremony space. As they entered, the 12 SEALs materialized around them once more, forming an honor guard that parted the crowd. People whispered and pointed, clearly wondering who this Marine sergeant was to warrant such treatment. Commander Wilson approached, accompanied by an elderly gentleman in a wheelchair. The man was thin but still carried himself with military bearing, and his eyes were sharp and alert despite his advanced age. He wore a civilian suit, but the Navy trident pin on his lapel and the quiet deference shown to him by the SEALs made his status clear. "Sergeant Henderson." "Ensign Henderson," Wilson said formally. "I'd like to introduce you to Captain Frank Reynolds, retired. One of the original frogmen and a legend in the SEAL community." The elderly man extended his hand to Gloria, his grip surprisingly strong. "Sergeant," he said, his voice weathered but clear, "I've heard quite a story about you today. Seems you've made quite an impression on my boys here." Gloria shook his hand respectfully. "The honor is mine, sir." The captain turned his attention to Robbie. "So you're the one heading for Bud's training? Looking to earn your trident?" "Yes, sir," Robbie replied confidently. "If they'll have me," Captain Reynolds chuckled. "Oh, I think they'll have you, son. Especially with DNA like yours." He looked back at Gloria. "You know, in my day, we didn't have women in combat roles. But I've lived long enough to see that courage doesn't care what gender you are. Your service record speaks for itself, Sergeant." Gloria felt a warmth spread through her chest at the simple acknowledgement. Throughout her career, she had fought twice as hard to prove herself worthy of the title Marine. To have her service recognized so matter-of-factly by someone of Captain Reynolds' stature meant more than he could know. "Thank you, sir," she said simply. "No, thank you," the captain replied, "for your service and for raising the kind of officer our Navy needs." He gestured to the SEALs around them. "These boys tell me there was some nonsense about not letting you in today because of your uniform. Good thing they set that straight." "Yes, sir," Gloria agreed, smiling at the memory of how quickly the situation had turned around. "Very good thing indeed." The reception was in full swing, the room buzzing with conversation and laughter as families celebrated their graduates. Gloria and Robbie had been talking with Captain Reynolds and the SEALs for nearly 20 minutes, sharing stories and building unexpected bridges between generations of service members. "So there I was," Captain Reynolds was saying, his weathered hands gesturing animatedly, stuck behind enemy lines with nothing but a knife and a compass. Youngest in my unit and scared out of my wits, though I'd never have admitted it. Robbie leaned forward, completely captivated. "What did you do, sir?" "Same thing your mother did in Fallujah," the captain replied with a knowing glance at Gloria. "I remembered my training, kept my head down, and did my job. Got every man in my squad home alive." Gloria felt a warm rush of pride at being mentioned in the same breath as this legendary figure. Throughout her career, she had simply done what needed to be done, never expecting recognition or special treatment. Captain Reynolds turned to Commander Wilson. "Jack, don't you think it's time?" Wilson nodded and stepped away, speaking quietly into his radio. The other SEALs exchanged meaningful glances, clearly aware of something Gloria and Robbie were not. "Time for what, sir?" Robbie asked. The elderly captain smiled mysteriously. "Patience, Ensign. Some surprises are worth waiting for." Gloria noticed that the room had begun to quiet, attention shifting toward the entrance where Commander Wilson now stood. The 12 SEALs had positioned themselves in a formation around Gloria, Robbie, and Captain Reynolds. "Ladies and gentlemen," Wilson called out, his voice carrying effortlessly across the room. "May I have your attention, please?" The remaining conversations died away as all eyes turned toward him. "Today we celebrate not only the achievements of our graduates but also the legacy of service that brought them here. Many of you come from military families carrying forward a tradition of duty and sacrifice that spans generations." Wilson gestured toward where Gloria stood with Robbie. "Earlier today, some of you witnessed an unexpected moment when 12 Navy SEALs escorted a Marine sergeant to her rightful place at this ceremony. For those who haven't heard the story, allow me to share it now." Gloria felt her face flush as Wilson recounted the morning's events, her arrival in uniform, the misunderstanding at security, and the intervention of the SEAL team. He spoke about her military service with a respect that made her stand a little straighter, and about the connection they had discovered from that long-ago mission in Fallujah. "What you may not know," Wilson continued, "is that Sergeant Henderson's son, Ensign Robert Henderson, has been selected for Bud's training, the first step toward potentially becoming a Navy SEAL." Murmurs of appreciation rippled through the crowd. Bud's was notorious for its grueling challenges, with a dropout rate of over 70%. Even being selected for the training was considered an honor. Today, we want to recognize not only Ensign Henderson's achievement, but also the foundation of strength, courage, and integrity that his mother helped build. Because no service member stands alone. We are all shaped by those who came before us and supported by those who stand beside us. At a nod from Wilson, the SEALs surrounding Gloria and Robbie snapped to attention. Captain Reynolds straightened in his wheelchair, his posture suddenly as rigid as men half his age. "Sergeant Gloria Henderson," Wilson said formally, "on behalf of the United States Naval Special Warfare Command and the Naval Academy, we would like to present you with this token of our respect and gratitude." One of the SEALs stepped forward, carrying a polished wooden box. He opened it to reveal a gleaming Navy trident pin, the coveted emblem that only SEALs were authorized to wear, mounted on a plaque. Beneath it, a simple inscription read, "To Sergeant Gloria Henderson, USMC, for exemplifying the qualities we seek to instill in every SEAL, honor, courage, and commitment, with gratitude from the Naval Special Warfare community." Gloria stared at the plaque in disbelief. The trident was one of the most respected symbols in the military, not something given lightly or to outsiders. "Sir, I can't accept this," she said quietly to Wilson. "I didn't earn it." Captain Reynolds spoke up, his voice carrying surprising strength. "You didn't swim the miles or do the push-ups, Sergeant, that's true. But you embodied the spirit of what that trident represents, and you raised a son who's prepared to earn one of his own." He nodded toward the plaque. "This isn't saying you're a SEAL, it's saying you're family." Wilson held the box out to her. "Please accept this, Sergeant. Not just from us, but from every service member whose life was touched by your actions in Fallujah, and from every instructor who's seen your values reflected in your son." With trembling hands, Gloria accepted the plaque. The room erupted in applause, led by the graduating class who seemed to understand the significance of the moment, even if they didn't know all the details. Robbie stood beside her, beaming with pride. For once, it was the son watching his mother receive recognition, a reversal of their roles that somehow felt perfectly right. As the applause died down, Commander Wilson raised his hand for silence once more. "There's one more surprise," he announced, gesturing toward the entrance. The doors opened to reveal two familiar figures, the security guards who had initially barred Gloria from entering the ceremony. They looked distinctly uncomfortable as they approached, especially the older one who had been so adamant about the supposed dress code. They stopped in front of Gloria, and to her complete surprise, both men came to attention and saluted her. "Sergeant Henderson," the older guard said, his voice contrite, "I owe you an apology. There was never any policy against military uniforms at this ceremony. I made an error in judgment, and in doing so, I failed to show proper respect for your service and your rank." Gloria returned the salute automatically, still processing this unexpected turn of events. "As it happens," the guard continued, "I'm a veteran myself, Army as I mentioned. I should have known better." He paused, looking genuinely remorseful. "The truth is, when I saw your medals, especially that Purple Heart, I felt inadequate. My own service was honorable but unremarkable. I never saw combat. Never was tested the way you were." He shook his head, clearly embarrassed by his admission. "It's no excuse for how I treated you. I can only ask for your forgiveness and assure you it won't happen again. We've already revised our training for all security staff." Gloria was struck by the man's honesty. In that moment, she recognized something familiar in his eyes. The same insecurity she had sometimes felt as a woman in a male-dominated military. The need to prove oneself worthy of the uniform. "Consider it forgotten," she said, extending her hand to him. "We all have moments we'd rather do over." The guard shook her hand, relief visible on his face. "Thank you, Sergeant." As the guards departed and the reception returned to its normal rhythm, Robbie leaned close to his mother. "So much for flying under the radar, huh, Mom?" Gloria laughed, feeling lighter than she had in years. "Not exactly how I planned to spend your graduation day." "Are you kidding?" "This is way better," Robbie said, grinning. "My classmates already thought I was exaggerating about my Marine mom. Now you're practically a legend." They were joined by Patricia, the kind woman who had tried to help Gloria earlier at the security checkpoint. "I just wanted to say congratulations to you both," she said warmly. "What happened today?" "Well, it was something special to witness." "Thank you for your help earlier," Gloria replied. "If you hadn't tried to intervene, I might have given up and left." Patricia shook her head. "I doubt that very much. You don't strike me as the giving up type, Sergeant Henderson." As the evening continued, Gloria noticed a subtle shift in how people approached her. There was a newfound respect in their eyes, an acknowledgement that went beyond courtesy. Word of the morning's events and the SEAL's gesture had spread throughout the reception, transforming her from an outsider to someone whose story everyone seemed to know. Young graduates sought her out for advice. Parents thanked her for her service. Even the academy staff treated her with a deference normally reserved for high-ranking officers. "You've made quite an impression," Commander Wilson observed as he rejoined them, a glass of punch in hand. "Captain Reynolds hasn't stopped talking about you. I think he's trying to convince your son that his mother would have made a fine SEAL herself." Gloria smiled. watching as Robbie chatted animatedly with the elderly captain. "I was always meant to be a Marine," she said simply. "But I'm proud that Robbie found his own path." "He'll do well in Buddhist," Wilson said confidently. "He has the right mindset, and now he has something to live up to." As the reception began to wind down, Gloria found a quiet moment to stand by one of the large windows overlooking the academy grounds. The setting sun cast a golden glow over the historic buildings and manicured lawns, where generations of naval officers had trained. Robbie joined her, following her gaze. "Penny for your thoughts, Mom?" Gloria smiled. "Just thinking about journeys. Yours is just beginning. Mine took an unexpected turn today." "A good turn, though, right?" "A very good turn," she agreed. "I came here expecting to be just another proud parent. Instead," she glanced down at the trident plaque she still held. "Instead, you found recognition you've deserved for years." Robbie finished for her. "You know, all those times you told me that doing the right thing matters even when no one is watching. Turns out someone was watching after all." Gloria felt tears threatening again and blinked them away. "When did you get so wise?" "I had a good teacher," Robbie replied, bumping her shoulder affectionately with his own. "So what now? The reception's almost over, and I don't have to report for my new assignment until next week." "Well," Gloria said thoughtfully, "I was thinking we might drive down the coast for a few days, just the two of us like our old road trips, before you head off to become a big bad SEAL." Robbie's face lit up. "Really? You don't have to get back to work?" "I called in some favors. I've got 5 days." She smiled at her son, her grown son, an officer now, but still the boy who had waited up for her return from every deployment, who had pinned her medals on her uniform with careful fingers, who had followed in her footsteps while forging his own path. "Besides," she added, "after today I think we have some catching up to do. Seems like there are stories you haven't told me, and apparently stories I haven't told you." As they turned to rejoin the gathering, Gloria caught sight of the 12 SEALs standing together near Captain Reynolds. They weren't looking in her direction, yet somehow she felt their protective presence still. The day had begun with her nearly being turned away, feeling out of place and unwelcome. It was ending with her being honored not just as Robbie's mother, but as a Marine who had earned the respect of the Navy's elite. "Ready to go meet your future brothers in arms?" she asked Robbie, nodding toward the group of SEALs. He smiled, standing a little straighter. "Ready if you are, Sergeant." Together, they walked across the room, mother and son, Marine and sailor, past and future, bound by service, sacrifice, and a love that had weathered every storm. And as the 12 SEALs turned to welcome them, Gloria knew with absolute certainty that whatever challenges lay ahead for either of them, they would never truly stand alone.